What's up, Marla fans? So today's project comes to us from the Jeep, letting me know that the stud on the back of the alternator needs to be fixed. Some time ago, I switched out from a Ford Motorcraft over to a Duralast 10S Li, I believe it is. It's an internally regulated 12-volt alternator. And I was changing the oil the other day, and I noticed one of my I went with a 3-wire, and I noticed one of the wires was busted off at the terminal there at the bottom. So I went to go take the wire off the stud, and the stud came loose, and as you can see, that's not good. So I read up on it. It's a pretty common problem, I guess. The stud can come loose. Just have to take the case apart, hold the brushes back, fix that, and then reassemble it. So I'm going to get to work pulling this out of the Jeep. And it's obviously not a stock part, but pretty common swap. So let's get into it. First thing I'm going to do is pull the battery off. Obviously, you don't want power running through there. So we've got the alternator in there now. I can get at that. So I'm going to take the bolt that I just took off for the tensioner and just thread it through the back here. I recently set one of the hitch pins down somewhere and completely lost track of it. So I'm being hyper aware of things that I need to keep track of, hardware, etc. Tensioner, I'm going to pull the belt. So I've got a little bit of tension coming from the bracket here. I'm going to move it up out of the way, and that gives me enough room to push back and slide the belt off the pulleys here. And if we can get by the fan, then that'll give me some room to get in there. There we go. Beauty. So something I'm not super happy about on the back of the Duralast is that this positive stud here is actually metric. It's a 10 millimeter. Which, I mean, I guess isn't that big a deal, but means I have to break out the other kit to get at it. Which, pain, you know. There we go. Okay. There we go. I am going to try to do this without pulling the fender off. It's a whole bunch of extra steps I'm going to try to avoid. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. I'm going to just go ahead and pull all my wires off too. And put the nut back on. Okay. Now I'm going to get just one more nut, bolt and nut down here for the bracket. And I'm going to get my hands in there and find out what size I need. And then, so you can probably just barely see, there's the bolt that I need to get out of there. So let's see if we can fit this guy on there. Yeah, barely. I don't know. We'll probably have to come in there with a wrench, honestly. Kind of a pain, but, you know. I'm going to find that I'm going to go as far as I can go, and then the socket will be too big, and I won't be able to get it off of there. So this is how we're going to do. Probably not the closed end is the way to go. Oop, some lighting issues, I guess. There we go. Slow but sure. All right. Okie doke. So we got that off there, and just gonna visually inspect the alternator quick, and just to make sure everything else is looking good. So for now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pull 1, 2, 3, 4 screws out, and open the case. And I understand what you need to do is hold the brushes back. So I've got a fancy tool there for that. There we go. Just gonna go ahead and give those a rip. Maybe shred them. Maybe those are not gonna come off as easy as I want them to. Let's get a wrench. Look like they are 5/16. I'm just gonna give them a little get them loose enough to get that screwdriver back on. Philip's headed over there. Maybe not. Not sure if I have a you know, a vise would really come in handy here. Let's see how that's gonna go. I don't feel like they want to. They really don't feel like they want to. Well, they're coming now. Seems they wanted to listen after I asked nicely. I stopped asking nicely. Whoop. All right, so I got the last of the bolts out. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the case apart. Should be able to kind of work it, I would think. Yep, there we go. Yeah, let's flip it over and do it this way, actually. Is that the way I want to do it? Maybe I don't want to do it that way. There we go, come on. There we go. All right. You could hear the brushes slapping, and it looks like a bunch of them separated. That's cool. Great. And I'm guessing that's where I wanted that little pin right there. And I forgot to do it before, so shame on me. Let's research how to put that back together now that I've messed it up. Fun. All right, lesson time. For the gentlemen and ladies that know what they're doing here, you probably saw the mistake I was making in pulling that apart when what I needed to do was jam a paper clip through that hole so that it went through and held the brushes in. I did not do that, so now I'm going through the process of getting them back in from this side. Note to self, do that first. Crummy bits aside, we can see that the positive bolt is loose inside the case there, and we can see that that's our loose guy. I don't really know how to fix that. I might get some Loctite, but I'm not even sure that that'll do it. So I am going to do a tiny bit of research and find out what the good fix is to keep that guy in there, because it looks like it's just almost like it needs a bolt. Oops. Almost like it needs a bolt maybe out here somewhere, but I don't really know. I don't think we can put, this is kind of just a crap design, to be honest. Like that's never going to get quite, it's never going to stay quite tight enough. That's just allowed to do whatever it wants. And I can't really see behind this stupid plastic sleeve here to see like how that seats on there. If it's got like is there like a square hole there that sits in? Is that just allowed? I mean, that thing seems like it's got some teeth on the back. Maybe that's what's holding it in there, but it really doesn't look like it's doing a good job. All right, so I'll come back to this in a minute. All right, so I gave that a couple of good ugga-duggas with the 10 millimeter. And, you know, that seems to be holding it into place pretty well. I don't really like the design of the square on the back of this that's just sort of sitting in that plastic insulator that sort of square-shaped sits inside the case. Seems like a good place for some failure. And indeed, it came loose, so, I mean, I don't know. I know these have been around for a long time, though, so it's kind of hard to argue with it. But I went ahead and just tightened it down, and hopefully it will kind of... you know, stay that way, I guess. So we'll see. Right now, I'm going to work on getting the brushes back in still. And I was watching some vid that said to make sure that those copper wires are in the down configuration. And I don't really want to take the whole brush assembly off. So I'm going to try to get that one in there and get a pick and, you know, scoot that back down the way that it is here so that it's not up. I guess if it's... Well, that looks cracked, doesn't it? Got to admit, I was pretty upset when the brush cracked, but this is a fairly common alternator. The parts are easy to find. They're fairly cheap, and they came quickly. All right, in the saga of replacing the alternator brush holder, I've got the stator out and got all the nuts and washers lined up over here. I'm going to start working on getting that out. So I've placed the new brush holder in. I'm going to put the insulated nut back in the lower one first, and then put the upper two in. The top one is insulated here. And I think there's some kind of capacitor. I think that's a radio noise capacitor. The video I'm watching that describes this shows it over here, but I'm pretty sure that's it right there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. My pin is in for later. I've checked the back of the case to make sure that it's something that I can grab when I need to. There you go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, let you know when I'm done. Alrighty, new brush holder is in. I tightened them down pretty good. This thing started crimping a little bit, so I backed that one off just a hair, but they all feel pretty tight to me. So I think that brush holder is good to go. Alrighty, I put the case back together. I just need to tighten down all the bolts. I made sure that I clocked the ports here. Where are they at? These guys. So that when it's sitting in the vehicle with the top bracket and the lower bracket, I've got access to those wires over here. So I'm pretty convinced that it all went back together the way it came apart. And obviously that makes me happy. So stay tuned. We'll get it into the Jeep and get it all hooked up and make sure it's working. All right, so I tightened the case back together after lining up everything. Put my nut on the end there, and I'm working on getting it back in the Jeep right now, just making sure the belt's on right. I'm gonna get in there and apply some pressure and get the bolt mounted and check the tension on the belt, and then yeah, hopefully we'll be done. I'll test it out, obviously, make sure we're we've got the right voltage and whatnot on the gauge, and then I'll be done. So hopefully this shows up in the video, but so I to get tension back on the belt, I used a big good long wrench and hooked it along that little ear on the motor and applied downward force, and then tightened the adjuster nut there on the alternator, and we're now at about a 1/2 inch or less of play, which is where you should be. And now I'm going to wire everything back up. Alright, everything's back in and wired together. And then the next test will be giving it a run.